Dashalale, welcome to the AWAM Tibetan Buddhist Institute and our Heart Essence class. Today, please turn off your audio if you're watching, and also then we'll begin with taking a deep breath. Take it in, let it out slowly, do it 2 or 3 times. And then a short refuge prayer. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent for the benefit of all sentient beings. So we are moving right along here. We are now up to the Guru Yoga, the last part of our preliminary practices, and one of the most important, as we will see when we begin moving along into Tantra. This was one of the particularly important in Dzogchen at the very highest level. And so here, Guru Yoga may be most important of all tantric practices, according to some sources at least. It is the last stage of the uncommon nindro part of the practices. For some, it is all that is actually needed. So Guru Yoga is about connection with the lineage, the lama, and also with the innate Buddhanature that we all have within. Through it, we express our faith and devotion for what we have done and all that is to come in terms of our practice. From Shabkar, said, no matter in what direction I go, I think of the Master. No matter in what solitary place I stay, I think of the Master. No matter what signs I see, I think of the Master. Always, at all times, I think of my authentic Master. So that's the commitment that we develop, that we have with our root guru in particular. And if you don't have an in-person root guru, Padmasambhava always works for that. And so that's one of the reasons that this is a very important practice to do. His Holiness Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche gave one of the most concise and meaningful descriptions of Guru Yoga in his book by that title. Guru Yoga means union with the transcendent wisdom of our Guru. So it's not so much about them as a human being or even an imagined being, but actually the essence of that being and ourselves for that matter. So our Buddhanature. Even further, it refers to realizing Buddhanature to be our own inner teacher. In the preface to the Guru Yoga, Dzongsar Jamyang Khentse Rinpoche wrote, Guru Yoga is the quickest, most effective method for attaining liberation. So in this practice and beyond, we learn to see our Guru as the Buddha. And of course, previously we talked about we see all beings as Buddhas. So this is not something that is particularly unique, but it is something that is often recited and mentioned. As noted previously, if you do not have a personal spiritual guide, a guru, lama, or teacher, you may use the universal guru, Padmasambhava. In the process of this practice, we realize our mind is none other than the mind of the Guru, that is, of the same essence. We imagine merging our mind with that of the Guru. So there are 3 main parts to the practice: the visualization, prayers, and the 4 empowerments. Many also include a lineage prayer, which in the entire lineage back to the Buddha is recited. This version does not include such a prayer. First, the visualization is often the same refuge tree as used previously. Alternately, you may visualize Padmasambhava alone or with his consort Yeshe Tsogyal. We then invite Guru Rinpoche or Padmasambhava by reciting the 7-line prayer. And that's one of the things that is common in our tradition. Not all of them do that, but in ours that is common. So we do that 3 times with intense devotion, feeling a sense of connection with your lama as Guru Rinpoche and with the lineage going back to the Buddha, even in this case, without reciting a lineage prayer. We show the devotion and respect for those who came before us. And Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche wrote, "Consider that outwardly the Guru is the union of the 3 jewels. His body is the Sangha, his speech is the Dharma, and his mind is the Buddha." So think of it in that way, the representation of it. Inwardly, he embodies the 3 roots. His body is the Lama, his speech is the Yidam, and his mind is the Dakini. And then secretly, the Guru is the union of the 3 Kayas. His body is the Nirmanakaya, his speech is the Sambhogakaya, and his mind is the Dharmakaya. So just note the symbolism that's involved here in this process, because that's what is key. And then the Guru is also the union of all Yidams, for there is not a single Yidam who is not the display of the lotus-born Guru. So all Yidams are considered to actually be a representation of him, or some would say they're all representations of each other for that matter. So the Guru is also the union of all Yidams, for there is not a single Yidam who is not a display of the lotus-born Guru. In the unsurpassable Buddha of Akanishta, he is the primordial Buddha Samattabhadra. So we have this right up here. And then he is also Vajradhara or Dorje Chang, so it gets represented differently in different lineages. In the Sambhogakaya Buddha fields, he is Vajrasattva and the Buddhas of the 5 families. In the Nirmanakaya Buddha fields, he is the Buddha Shakyamuni and the lotus-born Guru Padmasambhava. In brief, there is no manifestation of the Buddha that is not inseparably one with Guru Rinpoche. And so to pray to him is the same as praying to all Buddhas. So that's a nice representation, because it can be overwhelming. You start looking at all of the ones, and you look at all these pictures that we have in the Thangka paintings around here, and there's a lot of them, but those are only a few in the bigger picture. There's just lots and lots and lots of these, hundreds if not thousands. So the second part of the practice is to recite the mantra. Om Ahung Vajraguru Padma Siddhi Hong, typically pronounced Om Ahung Binza Guru Padma Siddhi Hong by Tibetans, so they modify it slightly. Om Ahung represents the 3 Kayas as well as the pure forms of body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas. Vajra or Banza or Dorje in the Tibetan means indestructible. It refers to a diamond and its ability to cut through all other substances. This represents unchanging transcendent wisdom. So transcendent wisdom is considered to be unchangeable, indestructible. So Guru is teacher, but also means a heavy or weighty kind of a quality to that. Thus, the Guru is considered to be the most weighty or precious, I think would be a more appropriate term, like gold. And so Padma, or Pema, means lotus and represents wisdom. So a symbol for wisdom. Guru Padma refers to the lotus-born Guru. And so siddhi means accomplishment. So ordinary siddhis include things like wealth, well-being, and so forth. The supreme accomplishment is liberation. So the Buddha talked about how those other previous kinds of things can get in the way. We should go out greedy, looking for wealth, and those kind of things that obscure our ability to achieve liberation. And so the supreme version is actually the liberation. And then Hong, at the end of the mantra, is a request for the Guru to come and bless us with all the siddhis. Siddhis means accomplishments, ordinary and supreme. After reciting the mantra, in the third part, we receive 4 empowerments and blessings from the Guru as a part of that. The first empowerment is called the vase empowerment. It purifies our body, plants the seed of Nirmanakaya, form body, empowers us to do the generation stage practices, and establishes the union of appearances and emptiness. Later, white light from an Om at the forehead of Padmasambhava, out here, visualized as being out in front of us, and enters our own forehead, or crown chakra, some describe it in that way, and fills our entire body, granting the vase empowerment. And usually the vase empowerment symbolically has some water involved. And we take the water in our hand, our mouth, and then wipe it across the top of our head. The second empowerment is called the secret empowerment. It purifies our speech. It plants the seed of Sambhogakaya, the celestial body, like a rainbow. It empowers us to do the completion stage practices, which we will look at later, and establishes the union of luminosity and emptiness. Luminosity is clear awareness. So luminosity we think of as a form of light, and it's a little bit like that, but the real meaning is clear awareness. Whereas emptiness is something somewhat misleading term that refers to being, in one case, empty of permanence, which is a classical one that the Buddha referred to, and or having a soul or a fixed self, basically the same thing. That is, nothing is permanent. And then the second one is empty of being independent. And so the idea here, the Buddha was saying that we are all interdependent, not independent. So nothing is independent, thus better articulated as everything is impermanent and interdependent. Why we do it backwards, I'm not real sure, but I do know that the Indian culture had a tendency to use that kind of via negativa way of describing things. Or as said in science, everything is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent versus empty of. So via negativa, what it isn't instead of what it is a feature of Indian culture. Continuing with the text, second, the red light from the Ah at the throat, Padmasambhava, enters our throat chakra and fills our entire body, granting the secret empowerment. So we visualize him, and from his throat, it comes into our throat. And there can be different symbolism that is a part of that as well. We'll get more into those a little bit later. The third empowerment is called the wisdom empowerment. It purifies our mind. It plants the seed of Dharmakaya, literally truth body. It empowers us to do the karma mudra practices, which we'll get into a little bit later, and establishes the union of bliss, a transcendent lightness of being and emptiness. Blue light from a Hong at the heart of Padmasambhava enters into our heart chakra and fills our entire body, granting the wisdom empowerment. Now, these empowerments get much more elaborate than what is being described here, but this is the essence of each of these. And sometimes they're actually done in this very simple kind of basis. The fourth empowerment is the word empowerment. It purifies subtle obscurations and plants the seed of Swabhavakakaya, the union of the other three as one taste. So this empowers us to do the great perfection practices, Dzogchen. And we'll get to those later as well. And it establishes the union of awareness and emptiness. So the two of those are joined together. A red light from Hri at the navel of Padmasambhava enters into our navel chakra and fills our entire body, granting the word empowerment. So this is followed by meditation on emptiness, traditionally in the practice, abiding in pure awareness of the natural state, literally the ability to be aware of awareness itself. Afterward, continue to maintain the feeling of devotion. Practice remembering the presence of the Guru as being above your head at all times. So that's another classical representation that we imagine that the Buddha is continually with us at the top of our head. Although when we go to bed at night, it comes down into our heart and then comes back up in the morning. It's a traditional way of understanding that or conceptualizing it. So at night, this is the story of that. At night, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche recommends visualizing a small Guru Rinpoche the size of the first joint of your thumb. So just the first part of that. Sitting a four-petaled red lotus in your heart chakra. So that has four petals, the four cardinal directions, radiating light that fills your body. So it's full of this red glow. The environment, the entire universe, then returns into your heart. So it's radiating out from your heart to the entire universe and then comes back. Guru Rinpoche dissolves into light and you fall asleep while abiding in the luminosity, all that red glow. Repeated as needed in the morning, you imagine Guru Rinpoche arising from your heart to above your head. So he comes back. For this practice, I recommend that you do many repetitions of the mantra as you can during the 2 daily sessions for a week, or 1 daily session for 3 weeks, as we have been doing for all of these practices. And we then also set our intention. You can use the one in the text. I do this practice for the benefit of all sentient beings, or any other intention that you may have and would like to insert there. And then we recite a brief refuge, just as we did at our beginning here. And then the 7-line prayer, which I mentioned just briefly ago. So Hung, in the northwest of the land of Oregon, in the heart of a lotus flower, endowed with the most marvelous attainment, you are renowned as the lotus born, surrounded by many hosts of dakinis. Following in your footsteps, I pray to you, come and bless me with your grace. Guru Pema Siddhi Hung. So then we generate this deep sense of devotion out of this from your own root guru as Padmasambhava, the lineage, and all those who came before us back to the Buddha himself. And then we recite the mantra, Om Ahung Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hung. You can do that as many as you have time to do it. Certainly the common way to do it is 1 mala, which would be 108, but only counted as 100 times. So if you're doing this for the 100,000 approach that we talked about earlier, then you would just count it as 100 each time. And it helps to have a little clicker that you can use then for each mala. Just click and then you go on with the mala, reversing the direction, of course, so you don't cross over the guru bead. And so then we recite, light radiates from the Guru's 4 places, the forehead, our throat, our heart, and our navel, our abdomen, into the 4 places, purifying my body, speech, mind, and all subtle obscurations. granting the four empowerments and planting the four seeds. Those are the four kayas, the Buddha bodies, Nirmanakaya and so forth. And so the guru then dissolves into light and merges inseparably into me. Then I dissolve into emptiness. So non-conceptual understanding of this. If thoughts then emerge, just let them go and then reset your state of non-conceptuality and repeat it as needed. Now this presents this as a rather direct approach, but we'll talk more about it when we get to Dzogchen of different ways that have been developed in order to help facilitate that experience. So we meditate in this natural state of pure awareness for as long as you can. So if other things pop into your mind, then just take that deep breath and let them go back out again. So that's one of the most effective ways in the beginning, at least, in order to do that. But it's a pretty good way for those of us who have been doing this for a lot of years, too. And then we recite, by the merit of this practice, may I attain liberation for the benefit of all sentient beings. And traditionally, we do that 3 times. And then afterwards, post-meditation, we visualize your guru as Padmasambhava. So if you have a human teacher, you still view them as Padmasambhava. You view them as actually looking like Padmasambhava, or you can look at them as just being him in the way that he actually appears to you. During the day, as a small figure seated on a red lotus in your heart when you sleep. So in the daytime, he's up above your head, and at nighttime, he is at your heart. So any questions? Not seeing any questions. So let's go on then just a little bit. One of the things that I mentioned in the book that I wanted to share with you, because we have now gone through all of these preliminary practices and then doing them, counting them, or other versions of doing that. And so this is a concise version that enables you to practice in that way. So it's a little bit shorter. You can do the repetitions a little bit faster that way. So Padmasambhava is said to do preliminary practices at least until experience of them arises. Now, I like that particular one because it overcomes the idea of 100,000 of each of these and a total of 500,000, which can take a very, very long time, can be frustrating. It can actually create a negative effect. Why am I doing this? And so forth. And so this kind of an approach, until the experience of them arises, I think is a more effective one. It's one of the 3 different ways that typically is done. And so then after completing the recommended practices, you never actually complete the preliminary practices. I like to re-emphasize that, and particularly this approach, we don't just do it and stop. Okay? We keep doing them regularly in a short version. And so we do these daily prior to other meditation practices, and you continue on the path of liberation or to liberation. Below is a very concise daily practice adopted from one by His Holiness Dzongsar Rinpoche. It is to be done at the beginning of your practice each day. So this can be substituted for the others we have been studying. So homage to Samittabhadra and Samittabhadri, because I suffer due to my own actions and I now have this precious human life without knowing when I will die, I will now engage in wholesome actions for the benefit of all sentient beings with great joy and devotion. Therefore, so we visualize the refuge tree with prostrations. So we actually do the prostrations, or if you can't actually do them, just imagine doing them. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent in order to enable all sentient beings to attain liberation. And so we traditionally do that 3 times, followed with Vajrasattva and Vajratopa. Now these can be done with just Vajrasattva, but in our tradition we do with both together. Appear above me, purifying me and all beings and phenomena with nectar from the place of their union. And then we recite the mantra, Om Benza Sato Hong. This is the short version. And so we do this however many times. You can do it 28 times. You can do it 108 times, or however many you can in the time that you have available. So I reappear as Vajrasattva and Vajratopa with Vajratopa. Everything is now perfect Buddha field, which I offer with the next mantra, Om Guru Dewa Dakini Ratna Mandala Patitsa Soha. And so that is only done one time here. And then we visualize the refuge tree and recite the next mantra, Om Ahum Binza Guru Pema Siddhi Hong, as many times as you can. And then the light radiates from the Guru's 4 places into my 4 places, purifying my body, speech, and mind, and all subtle obscurations, granting the 4 empowerments, and planting the 4 seeds. So there are some lamas who say that you can actually get the 4 empowerments by doing this kind of a practice. But traditionally, we receive the empowerments from a master who has received them from somebody else in the lineage and so forth as a part of that. And certainly that is ideal. If for some reason you're not able to do that, but would like to, if you go to our website, and there is a resources page, and on that is a list of a number of different empowerments that are available online associated with Garchen Rinpoche. And so those, I think, are good quality ones that you can do. And then we dissolve the visualization at that point and rest in the natural state of pure awareness as long as you can. So that's the actual meditation part of this. And then we complete any other daily meditation practice that you have committed to. And that's one of the things we have to be careful about. When we go out and we start getting empowerments from one lama and another lama, or even a whole bunch from one lama, there's a commitment associated with those. And if they don't tell you what it is, you really ought to ask what their expectation is. And sometimes it can be very simple. Other times it can be extensive. They might ask you to do 100,000 mantras of that particular practice, for example, and other kinds of things. So it's important to be aware of those when you go to an empowerment to receive those kind of things. And so afterwards, reappear as the yidam of that regular practice, if you have one, and then remain in that state throughout the day and night with pure view always and always. So the way that it's described here, you would visualize yourself as whatever yidam that you are at that point. It could be Padmasambhava. View yourself. Now in here, this practice, it's said to view him in your heart in the daytime, above your head at nighttime. And so that would work. But a lot of times in different practices, it's more like what it's described here, that you visualize yourself as the particular yidam of the practice. And that's the kind of thing that we'll be getting into next as we move forward. So next week we'll be doing chapter 13, the outer yidam yogas. And so there's outer, and then there's another one for inner, and so forth. So we'll begin with advanced shamatha practices. We had shamatha before, but this is kind of an advanced version of what we did before. Shamatha with eyebrow bindu, the hollow body, and then the yidam practices themselves. So if you have any comments you'd like to ask about Guru Rinpoche, practice of Guru Yoga, send me an email. Let me know. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And then in the meantime, we abide softly and deeply with pure awareness, loving kindness, compassion for all beings, always and always. And please pray for peace. We need it as much as we can get. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.